Hi, I'm Dr. Sharon Gainforth from NeuroAI. And today we are talking about how communication comes before words. You see, before we talk about words, I want to pause for a moment because many parents come to workshops like this worried about one thing. My child isn't talking yet. And that worry can feel very heavy. But today I want to start somewhere different. I want to start with this idea. Communication begins long before words. And your child may already be communicating much more than you realize. So let's start with a simple question. What is communication, really? Communication is not just talking. Communication is sending a message, receiving a message, and sharing something with another person. And notice that none of these elements require words. If your child is trying to make something happen, they are communicating. Sometimes very clearly and sometimes very creatively. For example, parents sometimes have told me, no, my child doesn't communicate. And then 2 minutes later, I see the child physically dragging their parent to the fridge. That is communication. In fact, it's highly motivated communication. Or you're in a grocery store, your child spots the cookies, and you say, "Not today, honey." Suddenly, your child collapses on the floor like a tiny protester who has glued themselves to the tiles. No words, just dramatic floor work. But your child just communicated 3 very clear messages. 1, I want the cookies. 2, and I don't agree with your decision. And 3, and I'm prepared to negotiate loudly. That is communication, very passionate communication. So children communicate in many different ways. They might use their body and actions. They might reach for something, grab your hands, bring you an object, push something away, stand beside the fridge very purposefully. Some children even escort you to the cupboard like a little tiny tour guide. Those actions are messages. Children also communicate with pointing, waving, clapping, smiling, frowning. Sometimes their faces say everything. You know the look, that wide-eye expression that says, you opened the wrong snack. No words needed. And then, of course, there's sounds. Children communicate with sounds like laughing, crying, babbling, humming, repeating a sound again and again. And sometimes those sounds mean more, again, that was amazing, or sometimes, absolutely not. Children can say a lot with very few sounds. And sometimes communication shows up as disruptive behavior. A meltdown might mean, this is too much. A push away might mean, I don't like this. A shutdown might mean, my brain needs a break. Many disruptive behaviors are simply communication without the words yet. And words, obviously, are one way children communicate in sentences and conversations, but words aren't the first step, and they're not the most important step. Before words appear, something else happens. Your child notices you. Maybe they glance at you. Maybe they bring you a toy. Maybe they stand beside you while they play. Those moments might seem small, but those moments are where communication begins. Words grow out of something deeper, out of connection and shared attention. Shared attention only means your child notices you, and then they notice that you notice them. So as a parent, how can you support your child's communication? How can you facilitate their communication development? You really don't need complicated strategies, but I'll give you just a few. First thing is watch what your child is doing. Because if you're watching what your child is doing, then that logically moves into the next strategy, which is my absolute favorite, and that is to interpret. Interpret means that in your mind, you're answering the question, what is my child trying to make happen? What is my child trying to communicate? And then, once you know what it is that they want to say, not what you want to say, what your child wants to say, you model the word or the words based on the message that your child wants to communicate. And then you pause, give your child the opportunity to respond, and then you respond to whatever happens next. For instance, if I'm holding this little duck and my child is looking at it and I can see the message on their face or communicate is, I want the duck. And I think in my mind, what is my child trying to communicate? Oh yeah, my child is trying to say, I want the duck. No words. But then I want to model the most pertinent word out of the message that he's trying to communicate, which most likely would be duck. And then I'm going to pause. I'm giving my child the opportunity to respond. He might laugh and giggle, he might clap, he might reach his hand out, he might say duck, but whatever. You've given him the opportunity to do or say something, and then close the loop. You respond. So if he said duck, or if he reached out, or if he smiled, yeah, duck. And I give him the duck because he just told me I want the duck. Over time, your child learns something powerful. When I try to communicate, someone understands. And when children feel understood, they usually want to communicate more. So if you're worried your child isn't communicating yet, look again a little bit more deeper, because chances are your child has been communicating all along. Your job is not to force the words. Your job is to notice the message. And when communication is noticed and responded to, words often arrive right behind it. You are building communication every day. Thank you so much for joining me on this short discussion on communication comes before words. I hope that you have an awesome day.